All right, everybody, welcome back to Starting with a Story. Today has been a little crazy because technology has not been on our side, but I'm just so glad that I think it finally actually might be working. And today we have Greg Diamond on the podcast. So give him a little shout out, everyone. Hey, what's going on, Greg? How are you?
Thank you very much, John. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah,
I'm
of
really looking
course.
forward to this.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. So Greg, from what I know of him, he's a coach, he's a speaker, a physiotherapist, and he's just sharing his knowledge and his wisdom and with everyone and just really trying to bring out the best in people. So I really resonated with a lot of the stuff that he puts out there and reached out to him, and long behold, he agreed to the podcast. So thank you so much for being here, Greg.
My great pleasure, John.
All right.
I've done a few of these in recent times.
Mhm. Greg, to start off, what is your story? Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you are now.
Sure. Look, I'm in Australia. I live in Perth, Western Australia.
Oh, nice.
That's the West Coast. So I'm like California as compared to New York.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, it's interesting actually having a conversation with a lot of people from the US because often on my Insta posts,
Mhm.
my followers will often say, "Oh, I'm coming to Sydney next year. Can we catch up?"
Yeah.
And I say, "Yeah, sure. Just fly another 2,500 kilometres, and you'll get to Perth."
Mm.
And then they go, "Oh, okay."
Maybe not.
The other side of the country from where most people. I know you're from Melbourne,
Yes, yes.
and Melbourne in Australia is also on the East Coast.
Right,
A lot
right.
of people over the US might be watching Melbourne at the moment because the Australian Open's on, the tennis,
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
there's a few Americans doing well in that, including the great Serena Williams, and she's
Oh.
trucking along. Yeah, she's looking forward. She might get another title, which is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
So I live in Perth, Western Australia, but I was actually born in New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
And the story was that my mother, who was a Perth girl
Mm.
and had done physiotherapy, and she was going to work her way around the world. She was going to work in New Zealand, then she was going to go to the US and work in the US, then she was going to work in the UK,
Mm.
and then eventually come home. She was going to spend a couple of years doing that. That was the big plan.
Hmm.
She got to New Zealand, met my dad,
Nice.
who was a Kiwi, and before you know it, they were married, and they got married there and had about 4 kids there, and then they decided to move back to Perth because by then Mum had four small little children and needed the help of her mum, so she wanted to get back where she had a bit of family support.
Mm.
So she packed her bags and came back, and Dad followed shortly after. My childhood was a little bit rugged. It was my dad was heavy drinking,
Mm.
heavy living,
Mm.
uh, serially unfaithful, um,
Mm.
and had been raised in a very difficult kind of situation himself. Had been largely abandoned as a baby,
Mm.
and as a result, and the way that he was brought up, had no idea on how to be a husband and a father.
Yeah.
He was most nights he was out with the boys, and he was verging on being an alcoholic.
Mm.
As a consequence, our home life was not very together. It was a pretty dysfunctional household. A lot of physical abuse, a lot of mental abuse. So I grew up in a household that was, you talk about fear. It was filled
Yeah.
with fear.
Yeah.
Um,
I can
I
imagine.
used
Jeez.
to. We had a situation where Dad would often come home late.
Mm.
One, he worked late, but then he would often go to the pub before he came home.
Mm.
Um, when, as children, we might be watching a bit of TV in the lounge room, and then we'd hear his car come in,
Hmm.
and we'd all scatter.
Oh
The
my
the kind of
goodness.
the plan was you go and hide,
Yeah.
wait till he got into the house and listen to his voice in the way he was relating to Mum, and find out kind of what mood he was in, and then you judge on where he was at, and then you would judge on whether or not it was safe to kind of come out of your hiding place, which is
My
usually
goodness.
your bedroom or
Yeah.
outside or somewhere. Because if he was in the wrong mood, which was fairly frequent, then
Hmm.
you risked, you know, being at the sharp end of his anger and his brutality.
Yeah.
Now I'm not getting stuck into my old man. In the end, he died fairly young. He died at 58 of cancer, but the road to a good relationship was pretty rocky. So, and my young life was filled with sort of anxiety and fear from that point of view. In fact, it was interesting. I was at one stage I was relating to a psychologist myself with about this part of my life, and he made the comment. He said, really, it was interesting, isn't it? It was like you were like a scout, a soldier, going ahead of the column and having to creep through the jungle, knowing that any step could be a booby trap, any wrong turn could confront you with the enemy, and that was. I thought the analogy was so on point.
Right.
Our life was kind of creeping through the undergrowth, being careful not to disturb anything, not to step on the wrong spot, not to, So, and again, it was like, with Dad, you didn't want to say the wrong thing, you didn't want to do the wrong thing, you didn't want to even just get in his way when he was in one of his rages, because you'd end up copying it. So growing up in that sort of environment was pretty stressful, and I'd have to say my self-image and my self-esteem was non-existent. Yeah. And even though I recognise now that I am a good and competent human being.
Amen.
That you wouldn't have believed that when we were growing up, particularly the way our dad kind of spoke to us. We were. I won't use all the four little words and the stuff that was said to us as we were growing up, but it was usually you get a tirade every day on how stupid we were and how far worse than that.
Well, for one, I really do appreciate you sharing your past and your vulnerability with that, just because that's such a tough situation and such a tough spot. But thank you for sharing that, and it seems like you've come a long way from that as well. It seems like you've come 180, which is a blessing in itself, and also the fact that you're using where you are now to, I guess, share the wisdom and share the good word and sharing positivity towards others. I really do appreciate that. And really, I had no idea that was your past, so kind of putting those things together, really, it humbles me. And it really, I don't know what the feeling is, but there's a lot of feeling in my soul right now. So I thank you for that.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Yeah, I guess things took a turn for the better when my mum, on the other hand, was I think a walking saint. She was incredibly positive, was incredibly courageous herself in dealing with my dad, but also very persistent and the fact that she put up with him for so long amazes me. But when I was about 14, by that stage, Mum had caught Dad in bed with someone else, and so the relationship actually broke up for a while, and they parted company for about 3 or 4 years. But Mum actually took him back into the house eventually. But at 14, Dad was out of the house at that stage, and to be honest, those couple of years were probably some of the most peaceful in terms of our family life, because he was kind of removed from the scene. But Mum had got involved with a multi-level marketing company that was a cosmetic company. It was an American company called Holiday Magic, and they did a lot of self-development, personal development stuff. And she had done a course, a 2-day weekend with that company, and she was so excited about it. She got my brother and I to come and do the next one. Nice. And I think my brother was my brother was 15 and I was 14, and we didn't know what we were doing, but we went along to it. And it was, for me, a bit of a revelation. I had my first contact with Earl Nightingale, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with Earl Nightingale. He, American, one of the godfathers of personal development and human development in the US. He lived through the war. He was a merchant Navy guy. Then he was in the American Navy, and he was at Pearl Harbor actually. When the magazine went up in the battleship that he was on, he was thrown off the deck of the ship into the water, and he survived it all. His fellow seamen were killed. Yeah. And forgive me, but the battleship that sank in Pearl Harbor, that's on the bottom, what's that called? Anyway, all you Americans would know your history better than I. But so anyway, I
feel bad because I don't.
Well, he survived Pearl Harbor, and that changed his kind of direction of his life. And he became a radio announcer, and most magnificent voice, beautiful, dulcet tones. Yeah. Anyway, they had Earl Nightingale on this weekend, a lot of Earl Nightingale's stuff, and that was when I first came into contact with the concept that we are what we think, that, our thoughts create our being creates our life. And even though I didn't really know what to do with those thoughts, at the end of the weekend I was so excited by the fact that life, there was a promise, hope that existed in life that I hadn't been in that place prior to the weekend beginning, and that sent me on a bit of a journey. I started reading books. Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. I read that. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is probably the Bible of most people who get into personal development. And again, both Americans, and I just loved their words, and I loved the concepts. I didn't understand it all back then, but I just knew my life was expanding. There was more than this fearful kind of dark place that I was kind of living in. But things, the damage done by, I think, an abusive father, it goes pretty deep. So there wasn't a magic wand. I wasn't, good, cured and healed of all that input. So I struggled on over the next 3 years. You're hitting puberty, you're going through adolescence, you're struggling with the whole question of who am I, what does it all mean, all that sort of stuff. So I was dealing with all that, your sexuality, all those powerful influences that kind of all of a sudden hit that vital point of your life, and then asking, the bigger questions. So I went on, and then I finished my schooling, and I didn't do as well as I would have liked to have done. I did okay, but I knew that I was capable of more. And then I got into a university science course, and I swapped courses, and I eventually got into my physiotherapy. And look, both my folks are physiotherapists, so that's where that sort of came from, and it certainly interested me. I love the whole thing about health and the way the body works and so on. But I was struggling. I was a 50% student. I was getting 49% or 51%, and just getting through. I did lots of supplementary exams. I even repeated 6 months of the course, and I just struggled. I got to the end of third year, and the church group that I was in put us through a course by another American. You Americans, you've done a lot for the world. But, there's certainly in the area of personal development, a lot of the gurus that I have followed and that have made an impact on my life come from the US. This guy was called Louis E. Tice, and he had a company called the Pacific Institute, ran a course called Investment in Excellence. And our church group put us through this course. It was a 3-day course. And that course brought it all together for me. It kind of coalesced the information that I'd read and the excitement that I'd had in knowing that there was more, that there was hope, that change was possible, that growth was possible, that I wasn't stuck where I. It all came together in that course because Lou taught the basics of being able to, and the skills of being able to change the way you think, and then how to influence your life, and how to do that practically, what that really meant. So I was exposed to the concept of affirmations, of visualizations, of vision boards and gratitude, all that stuff, all about how to influence your mind and change the direction of your thinking so that what manifests in here, or what changes in here, then manifests what's happening in your life out there. That made a huge difference. I came away from that 3-day course and I started writing affirmations then, and I did them particularly about my course. And I went from being a 50% student to being an 80% student over the last year of my course.
Wow. Nice.
And that's what convinced me of the power of affirmations, because within a month my thinking had changed, and my marks had changed, and self-concept had changed. And that was probably one of the most significant things that happened to me.
Wow.
Now, that's again, awesome. Life is a process, so things don't all come together, magically all at once. But I knew that I was on the journey of self-development, and I'd have to go back a few steps and say also, I had a spiritual experience when I was about 18 years old that convinced me of the existence of God. Yeah. And you can call that the universe or source or whatever you like to call it. But whereas I'd gone through a rejection of my kind of Christian upbringing, I came full circle. I came back to that. And I think the rediscovery of my spirituality contributed enormously also to my growth and then my understanding of the concepts that I was now being exposed to. Right. So I think the two work in tandem: personal development and the spiritual awareness. Yeah, and that was radical and changed my life.
Yeah. What do you think is a concept of self-development that a lot of people miss when they're first starting that journey?
I'm not sure people miss it. I think it's more people have to grow into it. Like intellectually, you can understand that your thoughts control your life, and you can know that. No, your brain can know that, but your brain has layers. Right. And I think you have to gradually grow in your understanding that your brain is not built so that you can thrive. It's built so that you can survive. And that, we have these 3 layers of our brain, really. We have the deeper, more basic brain, sometimes called the reptilian brain. We have a later evolutionary development called the mammalian brain, the mammal brain. Okay. And then we've got the neocortex. We've got the human brain, which is the kind of the outer layer, which gives you and I the insight and the awareness that we have as human beings. Cool. And particularly the development of our frontal lobe and our prefrontal cortex. That has set us apart in terms of the animal kingdom. Gotcha. Now, but we are our neocortex, our new cortex, can be very overruled by the reptilian brain, this basic brain, because its function is about keeping us alive. It's about us surviving. And if we go back to our caveman days, it's about keeping us away from the often used example of, if we're running away from the saber-toothed tiger, everything else is forgotten because our brain is set on survival. Right. Now, with the stress, I think with the stresses of modern living, with fear is a manifestation. Fear is useful because when we're in front of an animal or when we're in a situation that is dangerous, that is likely to kill us or to damage us,
Right.
fear is useful because it can galvanize us into action. So when we know, the fight or flight response is a response to fear. So we either run away from the danger, or we fight the danger, or sometimes we freeze. If stress is overwhelming, we freeze. So fight, flight, freeze are the responses to fear.
Nice.
But so first, there has to be an awareness that this is what your basic brain is trying to do. It's trying to keep you. It's trying to wants you to survive.
Right. Keep you
so
alive.
Often situations. That's right. So we go into situations that are stressful, and let's face it, the modern world is a stressful place to be.
So stressful.
And whereas we used to have moments or times of stress, like the animal was turning on us and we had to run away from it, yes, we'd be stressed for that period. But then the stress was gone and we could relax and we could get back into normal mind space. But now the stresses of modern life, particularly our social media and the news on television, and we're surrounded with these points of stress that keep us in that fight or flight response. Our body wants to go back into the fear response to protect us. Now, we also know that when stress levels, when those fear levels are operating at a high level, then it actually affects our function. We can't think clearly. We've got the fuzzy head. Where our IQ reduces. All those sorts of things happen, and this is a response to too much stress. Our body literally, the stress response causes our body to start breaking down. We start things to happen because of the way our autonomic nervous system connects to the limbic system of our brain. So I think what happens to people is we get stuck in the fear response. So first you have to be aware that this is what your brain is trying to do. Then in that awareness, that gives you then tools to control that fear response, so that then you can allow the new cortex, the neocortex, the human brain, to direct your life and your function.
Take action finally.
And take a positive action, and not be the victim of this reptilian brain.
So what's in your experience? You kind of talked a little bit about this, but the theme of the season is fear. So in your experience, when facing fear and trying to overcome it in your life, what has been a very valuable or a key concept or a key advice or something that really helped you overcome whatever fear that you were facing in that moment?
I think one is to recognize that fear is part of our life, and it actually serves a purpose. And then to recognize that courage is not the lack of fear. Courage is acting in the face of fear. So not to be, this will sound weird, but not to be afraid of fear. Recognize that fear is there for a purpose, and it's to keep you alive, and it's for you to avoid danger. To realize some of the situations we are in are not causing us physical danger. We're not in danger of dying. So then to act, to feel the fear, yes, but not let it rule you.
Yeah.
And then to act, and when you act in, and that's courage, then what happens to fear? Fear dissipates. It loses its power. So first, to have courage, to promote courage, to act anyway, despite the fear. and not let fear rule your behavior. Let your courage rule your behavior.
Yeah. Well, would you say that you like now embrace fear and you welcome it?
I'm not sure I got to the stage where I embrace and welcome it, but I know how to deal with it,
Mm,
and I also know some strategies
mm,
whereby I can turn the power of fear
mm,
into an emotional force that actually can give me strength
mm.
and power
Yeah.
and insight. I always remember something that Mel Robbins said
Mm,
when she had this terrible fear of speaking in public,
mm.
and in her life she was getting called more and more to go on stage, and she would break into a sweat before
Mm.
she got on the stage, and her the anxiety levels were so high that she wasn't even sure she could get on stage and give a
Speak.
talk.
Yeah.
And then she learnt that physiologically, so what happens to your body
Mm.
when you are anxious and when you are excited are exactly the same things.
Huh.
The eyes dilate, you perspire a little bit,
Yeah.
your the
Ah.
same autonomic nerve function
Mm.
occurs whether you're anxious or whether you're excited.
Yeah.
So she turned it around. Now, when she was starting to feel anxious, she would say, "I'm so excited. Oh,
Oh,
I'm
wow.
obviously so excited."
Mm.
And if you like, she would form an excitement response.
Mm.
So now, when she goes onto stage, she's walking up to the stage. I'm so excited about getting on
Yeah.
the stage. I'm so excited. So she turned the fear into
Mm.
excitement.
Yeah,
And
that's really
that has
cool.
stuck me. When she said that stuck with me.
Mm.
And every time now when I'm starting to feel anxious, I turn it around and I say, I'm feeling so excited. I'm obviously feeling so excited. And I think about the situation that I'm coming into. And often it'll be, um, a situation where you're uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a new thing, whether it's a new situation, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
a new thing you're learning,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it might be. And even to say those words over and over in your head, I'm so excited, I'm so excited, I'm so
Right.
excited, can actually make the difference.
Oh, wow. Huh.
I also think physiologically, Tony Robbins calls it about
Mm-hmm.
changing your state.
Yeah, the
So,
state of
you know,
mind and the state you're in. Yeah.
state your body's in,
Mm-hmm.
because triggers emotion, emotion triggers your action confirms your thinking, and
Mm-hmm.
so it goes around in a circle.
Mm.
So each of those things you can use as an interrupter.
Mm.
So you can use the way you think, like saying, "Oh, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited."
Mm-hmm.
You can use your emotion. Okay, what's the emotion I'm feeling? Change the emotion. We
Mm.
can change emotion. We can take yourself into a situation where, if you're being anxious, think about a situation. So what do we do when we're anxious? We often then drop ourselves into a thought pattern where we're thinking about
Mm.
that
Yeah. The anxiety and
situation,
situations
the
where you.
anxiety,
Mhm.
and we just make ourselves more and more
Oh
anxious.
yeah, you just go
So,
down a spiral of just darkness.
so we can change that emotion,
Mm-hmm.
because we all know what it feels like to be happy. So take yourself back to a happy situation.
Mm.
Was it when you were on the stage getting an award, at your 6th birthday party? Was it, take yourself back there,
Mm.
feel the emotion you felt then,
Mm.
then bring that emotion into the current situation.
Mm.
When did you feel peaceful? When did you feel joyful? And it's amazing.
Mm.
When you create that image in your mind, you bring the emotion into the present.
Mm.
So don't feed the negative emotion. When you're aware, you say, why am I feeling like this? Oh yeah, I'm really anxious. I'm going over and over in my mind, my
Mm.
potential failure,
Mm.
whatever it might be. Okay, bring yourself into the moment of when you felt a powerful, positive emotion. Recreate it. Go over that in your head. It's amazing how that brings that level of anxiety down. And then the third thing is your action. How do I look and feel when I'm anxious? Oh, I'm cowering. My shoulders are forward. I'm taking short steps. My hands are, whatever it might be. How do I feel when I'm happy? Well, I'm smiling. My shoulders are back. I feel like I've got the Superman shirt on. There's a cape flying off my
Flowing in the
shoulders.
wind. Yeah, I love it.
Exactly. That's how I feel when I'm positive and when I'm up. Okay, change my body to reflect that. And what happens is you change your state. So you can change your state by changing your thinking, your emotional response, and your action. Each of those are triggers for controlling fear and anxiety.
Amen.
Or any negative emotion that you might be going through.
Amen. I really like all that so much, and I love the concept and the idea that you were saying that it all starts with you. It's not someone else. It's not your neighbor. It's not your parents. It's not your friends. It starts with you, and you kind of emphasize this a lot. But it's that for the first step is the awareness, and then the second step is to recognize your state and do something about it, rather than allowing the outside factors or yourself to just kind of bring yourself in to hit a wall and just really focus on you. So I really, really love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that to me was the key. It was the key of repairing my relationship with my father too, because when you come from an abusive background or and whatever it might be, it's very easy to blame the world or my father or our situation for the negative things that happen to you in your life. But blame gets you nowhere, and it takes power away from you. You want to gain power. You want to gain control in your life. And where does it all change? It changes in here. We have. When you learn that you can control your thinking, you can control your emotional state, you can control who you're with, you can control, as an adult anyway, you can control, there's so much about your life that you can add control to your life rather than giving your control away by blaming the world, the weather, the government, the tax situation, the bullies at school, whatever it might be. We've all got stories, and we've all got things that happen to us, and everyone has a story. Everyone has suffering in their life. You can't live in life and get away from suffering. We all have a story, but if we let the story dictate our future, then we've allowed the story to control us, and that's not where growth is. It's not where power is. It's not where success is. That's not where growth is. Growth is taking control back. What can I do? I can change the way I think about the situation. I can change the way I think about that person. And it's amazing when you realise that you can stop blaming and start loving, for want of a better word, then life takes a very powerful, positive turn. Amen. You get control of your life back.
Well, Greg, wow. Just so many great things, man. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are coming close to the end of our interview, but before we get to our final 3 questions, I just really wanted to say thank you. I mean, I feel like I've learned so much from you just now, and just to see how far, again, that you've come from your upbringing to really just diving as deep as you can to into self-development, and not only that, but sharing it with others is just, it's awesome, man. It really is, and it really does bring a smile to my face, and I got to definitely work on some of those techniques to try to change my thinking in situations where I'm anxious or when I'm fearful and whatnot. So I really do appreciate your wisdom and your willingness to share. I really do.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the invitation to speak. I love speaking about this stuff, and that's my life now. I mean, I'm a physiotherapist by profession, and part of my story is that I eventually built a successful kind of 7-figure practice.
We got to talk about that at some point too.
Yeah, to a corporate group, so which has allowed me the time and energy to spend on this. It's interesting. I'm in the second half of my life now, and I feel my mission. Part of my mission is to spread the word that you're not stuck where you are. That in fact there are things that you can do and ways you can think that can open up new doors for your life. Man. So that's kind of my mission.
I love
my
that.
purpose now, and So you giving me the opportunity to say stuff like this just is a joy to me. So love it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So are you ready for these last 3 questions before we get out of here?
Yeah, fire away.
All right.
Sounds
so
good.
The first question is, what's been the favorite chapter of your life so far?
Oh, favorite chapter of my life. Look, I certainly. I think having my spiritual awakening back in my late teens, early 20s was a very powerful experience for me, and incorporating my discovery of the personal development and of transformation, the power of transformation. That was a great time. I think getting married to my beautiful, gorgeous, amazing wife, and then we had 6 children, together, and
that's so cool.
raising that mob, and my children are a great joy to me.
Awesome.
But probably my favourite time of my life is right now. Just again having the opportunity to do this stuff. I love it. Also, last year we got our first grandchild, and that's
congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we've got a little girl, little Daisy, and she is just a delight and a blessing to our lives. So every part of my life has had its great positive, transformative experiences, and that's still happening. And I see my life as to me, it's just unfolding. It's just getting, and I'm loving it.
Amen. That's awesome. I'm really happy for you. Second question is, if you had to put a name to the next chapter in your life, what would you name that chapter?
Wow, putting a name to the next chapter of my life. Probably teacher. I see myself as kind of opening. What I want to do is open people's hearts and minds to the power of a transformed life, and that they can be who they want to be. Pursue who they are, really. It's about introducing people to the fact that they are more than they think they are. That's what I want to do.
Amen.
There's actually a scriptural quote from Isaiah, which is, "You will speak a word to the weary that will rouse." And that's where I see my life going. I want to speak a word to the weary that rouses them, that excites them, and inspires them. That was probably a long-winded answer to a short question, but anyway.
That's awesome. Hey, I love it. And, let me know about that class, because I would love to sign up. That sounds like so much fun.
Okay.
And then the last and final question we have today is, if you had to put a title to the book of your entire life, what would you title that book?
Gee. The Transforming Power of Love.
Amen. I love that. All right, Greg. Well, thank you so much for sharing. You got through all the questions. You shared your story. You finished the chapter book analogy type questions. This is your chance. Where can our listeners find you and learn more about you, and spend more time with you to learn who you are and all the wisdom that you're willing to share?
Sure. Look, my biggest platform is probably Instagram, believe it or not. Gregory.diamond. my Facebook is called Happy Healthy. Well, you can find Greg Diamond on Facebook, but also I've got Happy Healthy Wise and Wealthy Tribe.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, thanks. So you can find me there, and I run webinars quite regularly, and I use expertise.tv.
Okay.
Which
Cool.
it's a great webinar platform if people are looking for a webinar platform, and we're building a new website on Expertise. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be there in the near future.
Will do. All right. Well, Greg, thank you again so much. I had a lot of fun, and I really appreciate your time and your wisdom and your positivity.
Thank you, John. Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. Stay safe, stay you.
Yeah, thanks, mate. God bless.